The story of Noah's Ark, found in the book of Genesis, chapters 6 to 9, is one of the most profound narratives in the Bible. It tells of a time when humanity had become so corrupt and sinful that God decided to cleanse the earth through a great flood. However, Noah, a righteous man, found favor in God's eyes. He was instructed to build a massive ark to save his family and pairs of every animal species. The story highlights themes of faith, obedience, divine judgment, and mercy, culminating in God's covenant with Noah, symbolized by the rainbow, promising never to destroy the earth by flood again. This story is a powerful reminder of the importance of living in alignment with divine principles and trusting in God's guidance even in times of trial. The narrative invites readers to reflect on human morality and the consequences of collective sin, while also offering hope in God's enduring covenant with humanity. This story is a powerful reminder of the importance of living in alignment with divine principles and trusting in God's guidance even in times of trial. The narrative invites readers to reflect on human morality and the consequences of collective sin, while also offering hope in God's enduring covenant with humanity. In the early days of the world, when humanity was still young, people began to stray from God's path. Their hearts were filled with wickedness and sin, and the world became a place of violence and corruption. Seeing this, God was deeply saddened by how far his creation had fallen. He decided that he would cleanse the earth of its wickedness and start anew. But among all the people, there was one man who remained faithful to God. His name was Noah. Noah was a righteous man who walked with God, and because of this, God chose to save him and his family from the coming destruction. God spoke to Noah and told him of his plan to flood the earth and destroy all life. He instructed Noah to build a great ark, a massive boat made of gopher wood and coated with pitch inside and out. The ark was to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, with a roof, a door on the side, and 3 decks inside. This ark would be the vessel that saved Noah, his family, and 2 of every kind of living creature from the floodwaters. Noah did everything God commanded. He worked diligently, building the ark exactly as God had instructed. When the ark was completed, God told Noah to bring into the ark 2 of every kind of animal, male and female, along with 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal and bird. Noah was also to bring enough food to sustain his family and the animals during their time on the ark. When everything was ready, God commanded Noah and his wife, his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives to enter the ark. Once they were inside, God himself shut the door, sealing them in. In the early days of the world, when humanity was still young, people began to stray from God's path. Their hearts were filled with wickedness and sin, and the world became a place of violence and corruption. Seeing this, God was deeply saddened by how far his creation had fallen. He decided that he would cleanse the earth of its wickedness and start anew. But among all the people, there was one man who remained faithful to God. His name was Noah. Noah was a righteous man who walked with God, and because of this, God chose to save him and his family from the coming destruction. God spoke to Noah and told him of his plan to flood the earth and destroy all life. He instructed Noah to build a great ark, a massive boat made of gopher wood and coated with pitch inside and out. The ark was to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, with a roof, a door on the side, and 3 decks inside. This ark would be the vessel that saved Noah, his family, and 2 of every kind of living creature from the floodwaters. Noah did everything God commanded. He worked diligently, building the ark exactly as God had instructed. When the ark was completed, God told Noah to bring into the ark 2 of every kind of animal, male and female, along with 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal and bird. Noah was also to bring enough food to sustain his family and the animals during their time on the ark. When everything was ready, God commanded Noah and his wife, his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives to enter the ark. Once they were inside, God himself shut the door, sealing them in. Finally, God told Noah to leave the ark. Noah, his family, and all the animals came out of the ark, and Noah built an altar to the Lord. He offered burnt offerings of the clean animals and birds as a sign of gratitude for God's mercy. God was pleased with Noah's sacrifice and made a covenant with him, promising that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood. As a sign of this covenant, God set a rainbow in the sky, saying, "Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life." Noah and his family began to repopulate the earth, and from them, the nations of the world would grow. The story of Noah's Ark is a reminder of God's justice, mercy, and the importance of remaining faithful to His will. Why did God create the flood? The Great Flood, also known as the Water Deluge, or by Noah's Flood, is a pivotal event described in the book of Genesis, chapters 6 to 9, in the Bible. According to the narrative, God brought forth the flood as a judgment upon the earth due to the pervasive wickedness of humanity. The reasons for this catastrophic event and its significance have been debated and analyzed by theologians, historians, and scholars for centuries. Below is a detailed exploration of why God chose to unleash the flood, incorporating biblical text, theological interpretations, and historical context. Humanity's wickedness and corruption. The Bible introduces the flood narrative by depicting the moral degradation of humanity. In Genesis 6:5-7, the text states, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that He had made human beings on the earth, and His heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." Here, the core reason for the flood is the profound corruption of humanity. The Bible suggests that human beings had become morally depraved to the point where every inclination of their heart was inclined toward evil. The word wickedness refers not just to isolated acts of immorality, but to a pervasive and continual evil that encompassed all human actions, thoughts, and intentions. In theological terms, sin had corrupted the relationship between God and His creation. Humanity's evil behavior had disrupted the natural order, damaging the relationship between humans and God, as well as humans and nature. The wanton disobedience of humans to God's moral law was seen as the primary cause of this breakdown, which culminated in violence, idolatry, and oppression. The influence of the Nephilim. One of the more mysterious and debated passages preceding the flood narrative involves the Nephilim and the sons of God. Genesis 6:1-4. These figures are described as part of the cause of the flood. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Nephilim are often interpreted as the offspring of angels, sons of God, and human women. This interpretation suggests a mingling of divine and human beings, which further corrupted the moral order. Some scholars argue that this union between angels and humans represented a rebellion against God's design, leading to widespread chaos and evil. Whether the Nephilim were literal or symbolic, their presence emphasizes the magnitude of sin in the pre-flood world. Their existence is often cited as one of the final triggers for God's decision to cleanse the earth. God's regret and justice. In Genesis 6:6, it is said that God regretted creating humanity. This regret, however, is not interpreted as God changing His mind or making a mistake in the human sense. Instead, it reflects the deep sorrow and grief that God experienced over the disobedience and sinfulness of humanity. The flood, from a theological standpoint, can be seen as a divine act of justice. Humanity's evil had reached such a point that it was necessary for God to intervene in a drastic way. The flood, therefore, represents a reset, a cleansing of the world from the accumulated sins of humanity. This act was not just punishment, but also an act of mercy, as it sought to restore the earth to a state of purity and righteousness. Noah's righteousness and the covenant. In contrast to the wickedness of the world, Noah is described as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. Genesis 6:9. Noah's faith and obedience to God set him apart from the rest of humanity. While God decided to destroy the corrupt world, he chose to save Noah and his family, along with pairs of animals, as a means to preserve life and offer humanity a second chance. Noah's role in the story illustrates the theme of salvation through faith. While the rest of the world perished due to sin, Noah's faithfulness secured his family's survival. His obedience in building the ark, despite the ridicule and disbelief of others, demonstrates the importance of trusting in God's plan. After the flood subsided, God established a covenant with Noah and his descendants, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. The rainbow was given as a sign of this covenant. Genesis 9:12-17. The covenant emphasizes God's desire for a relationship and reconciliation with humanity, even after judgment. Theological interpretations of the flood. Over the centuries, the story of Noah's Ark has been the subject of countless interpretations in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic theology. Some of the key interpretations include the flood as a type of baptism. In Christian theology, the flood is often seen as a prefiguration of baptism. Just as the flood cleansed the earth from sin, baptism symbolizes the washing away of sin and the beginning of a new life in Christ. The Apostle Peter makes this connection in the New Testament, 1 Peter chapter 3, 20-21, stating that the waters of the flood symbolize the waters of baptism, which now saves believers through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Moral lessons. Many theologians see the flood narrative as a warning about the consequences of human disobedience and moral decay. The flood serves as a reminder that God's patience has limits and that persistent sin will eventually lead to divine judgment. At the same time, the story highlights God's mercy in providing a way of salvation for those who remain faithful. Environmental and ethical responsibility. Some modern interpreters view the flood as a reflection on humanity's stewardship of the earth. The destruction brought by the flood can be seen as a consequence of humanity's failure to care for creation and live in harmony with God's moral order. The story calls for a renewed commitment to ethical living and environmental responsibility. The flood in other cultures and myths. It is also important to note that flood myths are not unique to the Bible. Many ancient cultures, including the Mesopotamians, Greeks, and Native Americans, have their own versions of a great flood. The most famous of these is the key Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient Mesopotamian story that predates the biblical flood narrative. In this story, a man named Utnapishtim is warned by the gods to build a boat to survive a great flood that would destroy humanity. The similarities between these flood myths suggest that the biblical story may be part of a larger cultural memory of catastrophic floods that occurred in ancient history. Some scholars argue that the flood story in Genesis may have been influenced by older Mesopotamian myths, though the biblical account places a unique emphasis on moral and spiritual themes. Who is Noah in the Bible? Noah, a central figure in the Bible's book of Genesis, holds a unique place in religious history. His story is often recognized as one of faith, obedience, divine judgment, and salvation. Throughout religious traditions, Noah's narrative serves as a symbol of moral integrity amidst widespread human corruption, and it explores profound themes that resonate across time. The world in which Noah lived was one marked by profound moral decay. Genesis 6:5 paints a grim picture of humanity's state. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Corruption and violence had spread to the extent that God regretted creating humankind. The introduction to Noah's story is not just about him, it's about the world around him, and the pervasive sinfulness that prompted God to act in such a drastic way. In a world so far removed from righteousness, Noah is portrayed as a beacon of hope. Genesis 6:9 describes him as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. This characterization sets Noah apart as a figure who stands in stark contrast to the moral decay around him. He is therefore chosen by God to lead a mission that would preserve life and offer humanity a second chance after the impending flood. One of the most defining aspects of Noah's story is his obedience. When God instructed him to build an ark, Noah obeyed without hesitation or question. This obedience is critical to the narrative. Had Noah failed to trust in God's command, humanity and all animal life would have been wiped out. The ark, as described in Genesis, was a massive structure built to withstand the great flood, a daunting task for a single family. The building of the ark also highlights the theme of faith. Noah's faith in God's word was tested by the apparent absurdity of the task. Building an enormous ship on dry land would have undoubtedly invited skepticism, mockery, and disbelief from others. Yet Noah persevered, believing in God's warning about the flood. This faith under pressure mirrors the challenges many people face when holding to their beliefs in the face of societal opposition. The flood itself represents God's judgment on a corrupt world. Genesis 7 describes how rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights, submerging the earth and wiping out all life except those aboard the ark. The flood was a cataclysmic reset, cleansing the earth of its violence and sin, but it also symbolized God's mercy. Despite the overwhelming destruction, God ensured that life would continue through Noah, his family, and the animals on the ark. Noah's survival and the preservation of life introduced the theme of renewal. The flood was not just an act of destruction, it was an opportunity for humanity to start anew. Once the floodwaters receded, Noah and his family were given the responsibility to repopulate the earth. In this way, Noah can be seen as a second Adam, the progenitor of a new human race after the cleansing of the floodwaters. After the flood, God made a covenant with Noah, promising never again to destroy the earth by flood. This covenant is one of the earliest examples of a divine human agreement in the Bible, and it is marked by the rainbow as a symbol of God's promise. The rainbow serves as a reminder of God's mercy and his commitment to sustaining life, even in the face of human failure. This covenant reflects the dual themes of right judgment and mercy that run throughout the story. While God judged the world's wickedness through the flood, he also extended mercy by sparing Noah and establishing a covenant that would guarantee the continued existence of life on earth. Noah's story is not unique to the Bible. In Islam, Noah, known as Nuh, is considered a prophet who, like his biblical counterpart, was called to warn his people of impending divine judgment. The Quran emphasizes Noah's perseverance in trying to guide his people back to righteousness, even though they largely rejected his message. In Islamic tradition, Noah is a symbol of prophetic patience and determination. The story of Noah also bears striking similarities to other ancient flood myths, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamian literature. These parallels suggest that the concept of a great flood was a common narrative in the ancient Near East, though the biblical account places a unique emphasis on God's moral judgment and covenantal relationship with humanity. What was the ark really like? The construction of Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible, is detailed in Genesis 6:14-16. God provided specific instructions to Noah on how to build the ark to ensure the safety of his family and pairs of every animal species during the impending flood. Here's an overview of the building plan. The ark was to be constructed with precise measurements. According to the Bible, it was to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. A cubit is generally understood to be about 18 inches, 45 centimeters, making the ark approximately 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 145 feet high. Noah was instructed to use gopher wood for construction. The exact identification of gopher wood is uncertain, but it suggests a type of durable wood suitable for building large structures. The ark was designed with 3 decks or levels. This multi-level structure allowed for ample space to accommodate Noah's family, the animals, and their provisions. The ark was to contain various rooms, likely serving as sleeping quarters for animals and storage areas for food and supplies. A roof was to be made with a window, Genesis 6:16, for ventilation and possibly a light source, allowing Noah and the animals to see outside. It was also mentioned that a door was to be placed on the side of the ark for access. The ark's design was intended to preserve life during the flood. Noah was to bring 2 of every kind of animal, male and female, onto the ark, along with enough food for his family and the animals, Genesis 6:19-21. This showcases not only the ark's capacity, but also the careful planning required for its function as a sanctuary during the flood. How long did Noah take to prepare the ark? The Bible does not provide a specific time frame for how long Noah took to prepare the ark, but it implies that the construction was a significant undertaking that required considerable time and effort. Here are some key points regarding the preparation time for Noah's ark. In chapter 6, Genesis 6:13-22, God commands Noah to build the ark in response to the corruption and violence on the earth. The instructions given by God include detailed specifications for the ark's dimensions and construction materials, indicating that this was not a hasty project. Noah's willingness to follow God's command demonstrates his faith. He likely faced skepticism and mockery from those around him, which could have made the project even more challenging. His obedience amidst adversity underscores his commitment to God. While the Bible does not explicitly state how long it took Noah to build the ark, various interpretations and traditions suggest it could have taken anywhere from 50 to 120 years. Some scholars argue that Noah might have started the ark's construction when he was 480 years old, and the flood came when he was 600, Genesis 7:6, implying a lengthy preparation period. In the context of ancient construction methods, building a vessel as large as the ark would have required significant resources and labor. This adds to the likelihood that Noah's preparation involved many years of hard work and dedication. The destructive impact of the Great Flood, as described in the Bible in Genesis 7, is depicted as a catastrophic event that caused immense destruction across the earth. Here are some key aspects of how the flood is described and its devastating impact. The floodwaters are described as covering the earth completely. Genesis 7:19-20 states that the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. This imagery emphasizes the totality of the destruction, indicating that not just low-lying areas, but even the highest mountains were submerged. The flood lasted for 40 days and 40 nights of continuous rain, leading to a prolonged period of devastation. The waters then remained on the earth for 150 days, before they began to recede, Genesis 7:17-24. This extended duration contributed to the overwhelming impact on the landscape and the ecosystems of the time. The flood resulted in the loss of all living beings outside the ark. Genesis 7:21-23 emphasizes that every creature on dry land perished, which underscores the severity of God's judgment on humanity's wickedness. The narrative presents the flood as a divine cleansing, leading to a complete reset of life on earth. The flood carries deep symbolic meaning, representing divine judgment against sin and corruption. It illustrates themes of righteousness and salvation through Noah's family, who were preserved in the ark. This duality highlights God's justice and mercy simultaneously. The Great Flood narrative has parallels in other ancient Near Eastern cultures, such as the Mond Epic of Gilgamesh, which also describes a flood sent by the gods. These stories often reflect similar themes of destruction and the preservation of a select few, further emphasizing the archetypal nature of flood myths across cultures. Life on Noah's Ark. Existence aboard the Ark, as described in the Bible, would have been both challenging and extraordinary. While the scriptures do not provide extensive details about the daily experiences of Noah, his family, and the animals on the ark, we can infer several aspects of their life during this significant period. Noah and his family would have been responsible for the care and feeding of the animals. This task would have been monumental, considering the variety of species on board. Each day likely involved routines for feeding, cleaning, and monitoring the health of the animals to ensure their well-being. Genesis 6:21 mentions that Noah was to gather food for himself and the animals. This would involve organizing and rationing supplies to sustain everyone during the flood, which lasted several months. The logistics of managing food resources would have required careful planning. The ark was a massive vessel, but space would have been limited, especially with the presence of numerous animals. The family would need to navigate close quarters, making adjustments for comfort and safety. The ark had a roof with a window, Genesis 6:16, to provide light and ventilation. However, living in such confined conditions for an extended period would have posed challenges in terms of air quality and sanitation. The family likely experienced feelings of isolation from the rest of the world as they floated on the floodwaters. This period could have been both a test of faith and an opportunity for spiritual reflection. They would have relied on their faith in God's promise of deliverance. Life on the ark would have required teamwork and cooperation among Noah and his family members. The shared responsibility for the animals and daily tasks would have fostered a strong family bond. Noah and his family would have witnessed the floodwaters rising and the devastation occurring outside the ark. This experience would have been a constant reminder of the severity of the situation and the judgment upon humanity. The new beginning, the conclusion of the Great Flood. While the Bible does not provide an exhaustive account of life aboard the ark, we can imagine it was a mix of routine animal care, family cooperation, and spiritual resilience amid a unique and challenging situation. The ark represented not only a refuge from the flood, but also a place of hope and preservation for life on earth. The conclusion of the Great Flood marks a significant turning point in the biblical narrative. After 40 days and nights of relentless rain, the floodwaters began to recede, revealing the earth once again. According to Genesis chapter 8:1, God remembered Noah and all the living creatures aboard the ark, prompting him to cause the waters to subside. Eventually, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, Genesis 8:4. After a period of waiting, Noah sent out a raven and later a dove to check for dry land. The dove returned with an olive leaf, signaling that the waters had receded sufficiently, Genesis 8:11. Finally, God commanded Noah to leave the ark, along with his family and the animals, symbolizing a new beginning for humanity and the earth, Genesis 8:16-17. To signify his covenant with Noah and the promise never to destroy the earth by flood again, God placed a rainbow in the sky, Genesis chapter 9:12-16, marking a moment of hope and renewal after the devastation. God's covenant with Noah, a promise of renewal and hope. The covenant between God and Noah marks a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative, symbolizing hope and divine promise following the devastation of the Great Flood. After Noah and his family exited the ark, God established a covenant with them, promising never again to destroy the earth by flood, Genesis 9:11. This promise was sealed with a visible sign, the rainbow, which God placed in the sky as a reminder of his commitment to humanity, Genesis 9:13-15. The covenant included not only the promise of preservation, but also instructions for humanity, such as the prohibition against murder, Genesis 9:6, emphasizing the sanctity of human life. This divine agreement set the foundation for the relationship between God and humanity, reflecting themes of mercy, grace, and the possibility of renewal after judgment. Lessons from the story of Noah's Ark: faith, responsibility, and renewal. The story of Noah and the Ark imparts several important lessons that resonate across various cultures and religions. Here are some key takeaways. Faith and obedience. Noah's unwavering faith in God's command, despite the ridicule and disbelief of others, illustrates the importance of trust and obedience to divine guidance. This teaches the value of standing firm in one's beliefs, even when faced with adversity. Preparation and responsibility. Noah's meticulous preparation for the flood emphasizes the significance of planning and taking responsibility for one's actions. It serves as a reminder that being proactive and ready for challenges can lead to safety and survival. Divine mercy and redemption. The covenant established after the flood highlights themes of mercy and the possibility of redemption. God's promise never to destroy the earth again by flood signifies hope and the chance for new beginnings, reminding us that forgiveness and renewal are always possible. The sanctity of life. The story underscores the value of life, as seen in the preservation of Noah's family and pairs of every animal species. This teaches the importance of respecting and protecting all forms of life. Community and cooperation. Noah's family worked together to build the ark and care for the animals. This aspect of the story highlights the strength found in community and cooperation, suggesting that collective effort is essential in overcoming challenges. Consequences of sin. The flood serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of moral decay and sin. It prompts reflection on the importance of living righteously and the impact of one's actions on the broader community. Conclusion. In conclusion, the Great Flood was a divine judgment against a world that had become irredeemably wicked. God's decision to bring the flood was motivated by humanity's pervasive sinfulness, the corruption brought by the Nephilim, and the need to cleanse the earth from evil. Yet, even in judgment, God demonstrated His mercy by sparing Noah and establishing a covenant that would ensure the future of humanity. The story of Noah's Ark serves as a powerful reminder of both the seriousness of sin and the hope of redemption through faith and obedience to God. The flood narrative, with its deep theological, moral, and symbolic layers, continues to resonate with believers and scholars alike, offering insights into human nature, divine justice, and the relationship between God and His creation.